Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at whoknewpodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today we're taking a quick trip in the TARDIS with Classic Who.
Today it's Who Classic.
We've reached the point in the show where Doctor Who turned 50 in the year 2013. This begins our coverage of the 50th anniversary leading up to the Day of the Doctor. What better place to start than with the episode where it all began, An Unearthly Child, the first episode of the first season of Doctor Who ever. It's written by Anthony Coburn, directed by Waris Hussein. It originally aired on the 23rd of November 1963, and it was watched by 4.4 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Josh.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Kelsey.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hi, it's Heather.
Hello, this is Frank.
It begins with a London police officer wandering past a scrapyard on a foggy night. Inside, among various pieces of junk, is a police call box. Later, at Coal Hill School, teachers Barbara and Ian discuss a problem student named Susan. They comment on how smart she is, but also how odd she can be. Barbara believes that her family ignores her. She tells Ian that she went so far as to look for Susan's grandfather at the address the school had on file. It turned out to just be a junkyard.
That night, Ian and Barbara drive to the junkyard and wait to see if Susan shows up. To pass the time, they discuss the strange things that Susan says and does, and they admit that curiosity is the main interest for the girl. Susan arrives and enters the junkyard.
Ian and Barbara follow, but Susan is nowhere to be found. They find the police call box and wonder what it is doing there. Suddenly, an old man enters and starts to unlock the police box door. From somewhere inside, Susan yells, "There you are, grandfather," causing Barbara and Ian to reveal themselves. The old man demands to know what they are doing here and accuses them of spying. When Barbara mentions hearing Susan inside the box, the old man claims he heard nothing. Fearing for Susan's safety, they start to leave in search of a policeman. At that moment, the police box door opens, and from inside, they hear Susan's voice saying, "What are you doing out there?" Barbara and Ian run into the box and find themselves in a large, bright room filled with electronic devices. Susan approaches, and the old man, her grandfather, tells her to shut the doors.
Ian wants an explanation as to where they are, and Barbara thinks that they should leave. The grandfather doesn't answer any questions and is angry that they disrupted everything. He tells Susan that going to the school was a bad idea. Then he tells her that he was able to get a replacement part and begins working on the large console in the center of the room. He says to Susan that they know about the ship and they will tell others. Susan explains that the police box is the TARDIS, capable of traveling through time and space. Thinking that Susan and her grandfather are not well, Ian and Barbara try to leave, but the old man won't open the doors. Ian flips a switch on the console and gets an electric shock. After Susan pleads for him to let them go, her grandfather agrees. But instead of opening the doors, he activates the TARDIS, which shakes and wheezes. The TARDIS lands on a desolate landscape and a shadowy figure approaches.
Right, so this is the first TARDIS team which we have covered before with the Doctor and Susan, the granddaughter, and then these are her two teachers from high school, Barbara and Ian. A little bit about this. This is the first episode. It aired the day after JFK was assassinated, so it took away ratings because of the news coverage. So when they repeated this, I think the next week with the next episode of the caveman stuff, they paired this episode with it so that people could understand what was going on.
Oh, that's cool.
I always thought from the other episodes that we did that Susan was a bit much, and even though I find her origin, or the origin of that we are told in the story to a certain extent, much more interesting, I still stand by my assessment.
Well, and the Doctor's an interesting character. He's quite the jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sitting there like it's I'm finding it just interesting in a television history way of like, oh, this show, took off to a certain extent. I don't know the exact popularity of it at this point in its earlier, first season, but obviously created a phenomenon. And it's just very interesting to see like, okay, this doctor stuck, like this vibe, hit a nerve and became a thing. So I was watching it in a very documentary type way, keeping all that in mind, like why, looking at the way that the acting was of the time and the television production, and it kind of seems like it matches television production back then more, and regular television production like skyrocketed and this sort of stayed, but just its place and like what are the things that kind of hit. So I was very aware of, well, that's interesting. Oh, I could see how that was very intriguing back then and stuff. I will say it's got a real classic horror vibe. He seems like a villain, the doctor.
Oh yeah.
And the way that the teachers are Ian and Barbara are acting is so over the top, afraid of different, like they're creating their own anxiety in a lot of ways, and the way the dialogue was and stuff. So it was very interesting to watch, as much as it was just enjoyable that it was a doctor episode.
Did you also notice he was never named the doctor? They said, "Oh, I think the grandfather is a doctor," when they're in the school, but he's never named. He never says his name is the doctor. Nobody ever calls him the doctor because she says grandfather.
Mm-hmm. You see, she got her name from the "I am Foreman" sign on the junkyard. That's where she got her last name.
Oh, okay, right.
I always like character names as a way that the writers can tell us something about the characters. And just seeing that "I am for E-Man" at the beginning, like you could take that as either "I am for people" in general, like "I'm for man," or you could even take it like "I am for Englishman" because of the or everyman. But no, I like that her last name was Foreman, and I mean on the sign, like you said at the very beginning, the "I am Foreman" is just
it's
like
prominent.
Yeah, very prominent. Blatant.
And I got a kick out of what you were saying on our last episode, where with Colin Baker, is that right?
Yes.
How that episode started with the same setup, same scene.
Yep.
And I had forgotten so much about this episode. It's been a while since I watched it. Usually I watch it all as a series. I did not find the doctor as, I don't know what Brian said, curmudgeon-y, or
that's good word.
As he is later on in his run.
I don't see him as villainous. I just see him as...
No, he just dismisses a lot of the people. And that's the same thing that happens with a lot of the current doctors. If you're not the companion or someone that you're supposed to like, he'll just dismiss you. I mean, he does that with even Rory. He did that with...
Mickey.
Thank you, Mickey. Just a lot of people until something happens where he switches his tone. A lot of times he just dismisses them, and that's what he's doing with these people. And I liked it. Sure, go, get a policeman, and then we'll go see what you're like, talking about this greatness, just salvage yard.
My favorite was when they said something totally random, and he's like, "Oh, go away."
Right. So, yes, he was aggressive, kind of at the beginning, or abrasive, I think might be the better word. But it's understandable knowing what we know now, and it didn't seem as bad as I remember him being.
Well, I also think that no one has seen this before, so him being that way creates mystery and conflict.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Verdi Lambert was on the DVD commentary, and she mentioned that the conceit or the idea behind this original episode was the mystery of who the doctor is, because the show is entitled Doctor Who, so it's a question. So that's why they don't ever address him by name. It's always sort of by a title, like grandfather. It's not like Gallifreyan, like a Gallifreyan name. So they wanted you as the audience to know, what is this guy's job? Where does he come from? Who are the rest of his they kept wanting you to ask questions of who is this guy.
They succeeded.
Was his on the back end of things, was he the doctor?
What do you mean?
Did we already know? Was that established in creating the show that he was going to be called the doctor? Or is it something they just kind of came up with?
It's a little bit of both, because he was the title character Doctor Who. It was never, I don't think it was the Doctor until later, because then they came up with the regeneration.
Was he always credited as Doctor Who in his whole run, or just...
No, I think they stopped around...
I don't know.
I think Patrick Troughton still had Doctor Who. Could be. I'd have to look
Well,
that up. That's a good
in
question.
the second, I know we're only talking about the first episode, but in the second episode, they pose the, he said the title, or Ian said, when they realize that the name isn't Foreman or whatever, it's like, well, then Doctor who is he?
Right.
So it was early on in that second episode, so it's obvious that when they wrote this whole arc, that was in their mind.
I looked up the fifth Doctor, Peter Davison, and he is credited as the Doctor. So I think they changed it around the fifth Doctor's run.
But did the Doctor ever say before that, like, my name is the Doctor?
I think he started to.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he did.
In Classic Who, yeah.
Yeah. Tom Baker said it all the time. I'm the Doctor.
Okay.
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
I thought it was interesting they were there for 5 months, staying in one place. And I guess to try to fix the TARDIS, because the Doctor came back saying he found something that'll work, even though it's not great. And he didn't want to stay in one place for that long.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And it seemed more, he even said that, where is it? Oh, they were exiles. They were cut off from their home planet.
Yeah.
So it seemed the way they were talking,
Right.
there was more of a longing to be back there, but they were banished, which changed that he stole it and willingly left. I mean, it's not a big difference because you can't say the reason he left was because things were happening and it wasn't working. So it would have been one way or the other. But it just was an interesting way of doing it where it seemed like they couldn't or go back. So they only had this to do. And Susan loved this period of time and wanted to spend it here. And I can't believe she is supposed to be 15.
Yeah, there's no way.
If you look at the other students during some of those flashbacks when she's getting embarrassed in class, none of those kids are under 25 years old.
But what I've noticed is that people used to age much faster.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So while they were all definitely not 15-year-olds, they could have been 18 or 19-year-olds.
Yeah. No, true.
And one thing that'll blow your mind is this Doctor is younger than Peter Capaldi.
Yep.
That does.
William Hartnell was 55 when he shot this pilot.
Oh my God.
Breathe, Frank.
Oh my God.
Breathe, Frank. Breathe, Frank. Frank, breathe.
And when Susan was talking to Ian and Barbara gave her the book, and she was listening to music, and it's by John Smith and the Common Men. So then he was saying, "Oh, that's just his stage name," and all this. So it's like, is that the first reference to John Smith? And I don't know if they planned on that or just.
No, they didn't. They didn't
But
plan
it just was
that.
perfect. That was the name of it.
No, it's canon now.
And that's what he took, and that's what he took as his pseudonym. His
Yeah.
stage
Is
Those
that
aren't
a
real.
real band or is that made up?
You tell us. I don't know. I don't think
know.
so. Yeah, John Smith and the Common Men were a fictional group that appeared on episodes of Doctor Who. So they did make that up as, for every
Why
man,
isn't there a band
common man,
called that
four
now?
men.
Come
I
on.
know, really, there should be. And you just keep changing the lead singer out every couple of years.
Like, I've had it with this.
Where are you finding that, Frank? Because I'm seeing that it's real.
Yeah,
Oh, so-
that's not a real thing. I'm talking Discogs.
Oh, okay,
.com.
gotcha.
And they're saying it's a fictional group appeared in some early episodes of Doctor Who, believed to have been performed by the Arthur Nelson Group.
Okay, so I'm looking up that stuff and not like the monkeys. Like they're not real, but they are.
Right, and this, they said that the Beatles took over their spot as number 1 the week before or something, but that's all in TARDIS Wiki, which I thought was fake, so I kept trying to find other people.
Got it. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Are they real?
I'm trying to figure out when this one was, because there's an album on Amazon, John Smith and the Common Men, Sounds from the Inferno. It's a single. So maybe they made it afterwards from vinyl.
Well, I also found them on fakebands.com.
Yeah, I thought they were fake, but maybe this one person did it just as one copy of it.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't know.
See, I think it's fake, and they just kept, becoming such a
like a running gag
meme at the time. What they would do with that, but
I have a question about the Rorschach test that Susan did in the classroom. What was that all about?
I have no idea.
Right,
She does it so awkwardly.
It was kind of cool, though.
Yeah, but then she draws like the
hexagon,
the hexagon around it.
I was almost expecting
that
it.
revealed something.
Right. I was almost expecting it to come out in a later episode in this serial, but it doesn't come back at all.
No.
It was just her genius.
It was
bubbling over.
it was just one of the examples of how she's saying odd things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite one is when she's like, "But we're on the decimal system," and they're like,
Yeah.
"No, we're not." And this was
If
in
she-
'63, and then they didn't go over to a decimal system until 1971. But they were already the government was already in the progress of changing the currency, so everybody knew about it, but it hadn't happened yet.
And which episode was it where she said she named the TARDIS? Was it this one or this episode 2?
No, this one. Back to the doctor wanting to fix the TARDIS. I like to think that he's trying to fix the chameleon circuit because it's stuck in the police box, and they want to leave 1960, go somewhere else. So they want it to blend in with that surroundings. That's just my take on what is going on here.
Oh, that's cool.
But Susan doesn't sound. Blah, blah, blah. Susan sounds surprised when they land somewhere and it doesn't change. So.
That's in the second
Yeah.
episode, but I agree
Yeah, it
with
is.
Heather.
Yeah,
But it discredits the first episode. It
Yeah.
discredits your theory, but yes. But I watched it all together, so now I don't remember what I was supposed to watch, where that ends and where everything else.
Just the parts with Susan, Barbara, and Ian and no cavemen. That's what we're discussing.
Once the TARDIS took off, it landed, and that's it. That's where
Yeah.
Those
nothing where they landed other than it looks snowy.
no cow.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I can't just erase that from my brain, but I will try.
it's okay. Okay, so there's two versions. There's like multiple versions of the first episode, the pilot, because back then there was no pilot. Like Britain Television didn't create pilots; they just aired the first episode, and they shot something that's on the DVD. Is like more of a, I want to say, run through, because they leave in all the awkward transitions where you see that they have to reset to go to another setup. And so on the one that you guys watched, it's more refined, where the transitions from scene to scene are edited better. So they have that on the DVD, and it's kind of it's kind of cool to see what it's like before action, if you will. They're like, get ready, okay, go. And they also change the second half where Barbara and Ian are inside the TARDIS console room. Carol Ann Ford's or Susan's wardrobe is different. It has the black and white striped sweatshirt or sweater, where the other one has that more shiny, shimmery, space agey looking collar, long shirt. And they toned down the doctor's cantankerousness.
He was worse.
In the first one.
Wow.
And then when they do it later, where Susan has the striped sweater, it's a little lessened. And also the part where Ian touches the console and gets shocked, that I feel is done better on the second version.
The doctor made him shocked? Wasn't like Ian did something wrong? The doctor electrified the console?
Yeah, because in the other one, it's like the doctor pushes that button as a security measure or something. That's how I take it. And then Ian gets shocked, where the other one, it feels more like maybe accidental because his genetic imprint or the TARDIS isn't used to him.
Oh, I took it as the doctor was like, yeah, go ahead, do it. Click. You're going to not do that again if you after this. It was definitely premeditated, how I saw it.
And also Carol Ann Ford's hairstyle for Susan was created by Vidal Sassoon.
Yeah, it's very much of the time. It's very chic, and it also reminded me of Yvonne Craig, who is Batgirl.
Yeah.
They both move very similar because they're both dancers, I think, and you could just see that the hairstyle was the same, that similar look.
So for production, Eugene,
Yes.
in like the takes that they would do, would it just be, we're going to go through this and it's done and moving on? Or would they stop down and do like a second take if it was really bad?
From what I saw from the pilot that's on the DVD, they just kept that camera going. There was no real takes. But I think that on the DVD commentary with Waris Hussein, who directed this episode, he mentioned that there was rehearsals and things. So maybe they did all of that before they turned on the cameras.
Yeah, it's probably like theater.
Yes, exactly. And
you can even see in this one, all the actors stumble over their lines at times, and that would never.
they keep going.
Yeah, they just kept going.
But that makes it really work well for me. I'm glad
yeah.
they did that.
Yeah, I'm glad they're in there.
Yeah, the other thing that they said is that these cameras were as big as the TARDIS prop. So that's why those cameras are moving and they're like, they can't focus right away. And it feels like really claustrophobic when they're in that junkyard. I feel as if Barbara and Ian are tripping over props, but as well as like camera cables.
I feel like at one point the camera itself runs into a prop,
Yes.
and you see the camera tilt down and then come back up.
Yeah, because in that same spot where Barbara and Ian are kind of hiding from the doctor, it's very theatrical stage play-y, where they're hiding, but it's like clear the doctor can see them from his line of sight. And then when they change spots because of the dialogue dynamic, the doctor becomes more of the controller of the conversation. He goes upstage, literally upstaging them, and they're in the background, out of focus. So it's weird. It's like they tried to do something as a live stage play, but document it with a camera.
Yeah, a lot of the blocking was very, very stage play like. Dialogue too, the way the story was told.
So we've been talking about how the doctor is to various stages grumpy, and like he's very dismissive of Ian and Barbara. But I noticed watching it again for the podcast and like analyzing it, that's kind of how Barbara and Ian treat Susan.
Mm-hmm.
They're very dismissive to Susan, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember when you're a kid, the days you weren't supposed to have opinions and thoughts and feelings and be human.
But they're
gentle about it.
Yeah, they're gentle about it. The doctor's just like, I'm just waiting for her to lock her underneath the stairs like Harry Potter or something.
Yes, I'll give you that. But there's that one point when Barbara's saying she's standing in the middle of the console room of the TARDIS. She's gone through all of this, and she says to Susan, basically a child, "But can't you see this is all an illusion?" Well, you're in the middle. What illusion? What's going on? Did you take mushrooms, Barbara? I mean, it's so completely dismissive. Like, I'm an adult. If I say that all of reality around me is not reality, you're a child, you will believe me. Remember those days, Frank?
Susan just be like, okay, bitch, whatever.
You're taking it from one angle, and I agree with that. But I'm also seeing Barbara's point of view of, this is really weird. We're getting you out of here because I know reality, and this is far from it.
Yeah.
So it has to be some kind of trickery, illusion, setup. And it's like,
yes.
No, he's your grandfather's odd. You don't go into that. You're a good person and trying to save her.
But Barbara and Ian instantly take the role of, Susan, you're a child. You'll do what we say. You don't have an opinion. You're not helping us in escaping this. We're going to help you.
It's different because I say it's more like you don't know better.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, which is slightly different than what you're saying. Not totally dismissive, but it's like, because Barbara,
I like
Barbara. It's just I like Barbara, so I don't want to dislike anything she does. I can see it where it's like what she's doing is wrong. But with Ian, he's like, but it's a box. How can it be bigger on the inside? And he just will not let that go and keeps going on with that same line. I guess, well, don't you have a TV? Can't you see a whole apartment or building in your room?
I like that analogy.
Barbara was like, I feel that she was more protective more than anything else at that point. Because she knew something was weird. She was very, she's the one who felt, got a bad feeling about this, from a different program. But coming from the car to the junkyard, she goes, don't you feel it? And it's like, I'm going to just say things as they come. And she's more like, there's something really wrong. And I think that's just what's in her mind, what she brought to it. So she had to get Susan out of that. Not as some of the other ones at the time being so dismissive. But Barbara does do that more often. I remember now some other episodes. So you're right. It's just I didn't have the same upbringing you did because I went to public school. So it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I was thinking of the nuns.
Yeah.
So you didn't get beat?
No, not public
school. No, they played with your mind. That was worse.
Oh God. Oh.
Exactly. Yeah, the way that Barbara talks to Susan is they aren't debating.
Down. Yeah.
There is no back and forth. It's literally, I'm saying this, and since you're a child, I'm right. So that's how I see it, and because that's how it was back then.
I was going to say, that was more the mentality?
Yeah, children should be seen
and not heard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kids didn't have opinions. You weren't allowed to have an opinion.
Kids are idiots.
No, the class as Classic Who does has a lot of misogyny in it, but the way it's always written like misogyny's wrong. It's always like it's basically pointing out that the doctor's being sexist or the lieutenant or whoever it may be. They create these very strong women characters who keep experiencing misogyny thrown at them. Same thing in this episode with a little bit of misogyny, but it's more about what you're saying about ageism towards kids, if you want to call it that. But it's always pointing out that that's wrong. this child is capable, except Susan's a little off the wing. This woman is capable. This man is wrong. Everyone is wrong in their in the demonstrative, attitude. But even from the get-go, it's interesting.
See, and
It's
I
ahead
don't.
of its time.
But you see, I don't see it. I don't think the writers wrote Barbara and Susan to say this is wrong. I don't even think they were saying it was wrong when they had the doctor talk about the Red Indian and he was too savage to understand what a train was. That I don't even think was a commentary on racism. I just think that was just the way people talked in 1963. They weren't thinking they were being racist. So we look at it now with a whole different set of eyes, which, even, in the 80s, we would have looked at it as a different set of eyes. If that scene were written today, or if that scene were written in the 80s or the 90s, it wouldn't be written that way. Today, it would be written in today's method of communicating, where it's like, I know this feels really real to you. I know that you've got an emotion and it's valid and you're special. Whereas in 1963, it was like, I'm the adult, this is wrong, there's no discussion. And you just kind of look at it now and go, whoa.
Yeah.
But there is an underlying tone that whoever is being condescending in any way is incorrect in their assumption. Even Susan thinks she knows it all, and sometimes she doesn't because of what's going on with her, and she ends up being wrong in some ways. Everybody, and then the doctor is being obstinate and rude towards them, and he's wrong about that. So it's kind of I guess it's kind of seesawing a little bit in that regard. Anyway, that's how I put it.
And I forgot one thing, Brian, that kind of goes along with what you said about Ian saying, you're treating us like children, which is what they're doing to Susan. And the doctor saying, well, that'd be quite an insult to the children of my race.
Right, yeah, he does say that. I didn't even think of that.
Carolyn Ford was on the DVD commentary, and her reflecting on what she did at this point, she was like, yeah, that's what female parts were. They were there to ask questions and be told answers. Right. So...
And who did she play? Who did she play, Barbara or
Susan?
Okay.
But then there is all those things where everybody, what Josh was talking about earlier was when she says the odd things at school, she's right in everything she says.
Yeah. To the actress's point, it's kind of, and what you were just saying, it's kind of basically a lot of women's roles are a device. Whereas they wrote the men to kind of drive the story and the point of view and the perspective. So
Isn't
if she needed to be a damsel,
Doctor Who companion,
like if she needed to be a damsel in distress, we need someone to be saved, or we need someone to do this. They just move the women characters around it, because I did feel like, we won't talk about, but going into the following episodes of this story arc, Barbara is like three different people. Like Barbara at one point is not the Barbara in the beginning. In the beginning, Barbara is leading the plot, and then all of a sudden, it's just handed over to everyone else. So.
I don't think Barbara really had a character. She was just whatever they needed.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Two things I wanted to point out that I liked was at the beginning when the constable was walking around, he secured and checked the gate was locked. It's all foggy. It looked very much to me a Sherlock Holmes type thing.
Very moody.
And then the gate just opens for us to go in, and so we can see what's happening there. I love that shot. We know it's secure, but we're able to go in behind the locked doors.
And it's all one take. And to do that back then took a lot of rehearsal. I was like, wow, good on you.
Yeah, and speaking of the camera in the movie, you guys were speaking earlier about how big the cameras were. There's a number of shots where it's when they're in the TARDIS, especially where they're framing the actors and they're talking, and then someone else comes in, and then the camera moves over and turns it into like a whole other type of shot. And someone walks into the foreground, and then it's like a whole other type of shot, and there's no cut. Obviously, they did that because they were shooting like the play and stuff, but it was really advanced camera work for blocking. Usually there are many shows even nowadays, of course, that do that, but they make more use of editing, even if it's live editing, like a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
But for how clunky the cameras were, I was really impressed at the, I guess you call that screen blocking, in one take or whatever you want to call it. It was very well planned out. And we were saying earlier about the flubbing lines and stuff, I felt this episode was much more well polished than a lot of the later ones.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. They were like, okay, we got to go hard for this one because the pilot's what sells the show, right?
Yeah.
I think this is a really well polished piece of television.
The director is Waris Hussain, and he's an Indian born, like from India, and he was only 25 when he got this.
Holy cow.
And so he
Well, in 1963 years, that's 45.
Yeah.
So he, on the commentary, he said that he was very ambitious because he was so young, that's why he did all that stuff with the camera directions, because he was like, I want to make this my own. I want to do this the best I can. And I think that's great.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt this is the first time that I felt like anything that was sort of lame or cheesy was only because it was 1963 and all shows were like that.
Yes.
This was funny, but this happened even later with the square, you know, the 4:3 aspect ratio. Everyone is really close to each other, and it made me really uncomfortable.
Yes. It's so weird to watch that now going, step away.
Yeah. Not only was it a square aspect ratio, but the cameras were closer, so like you had to be that close, which made it even like, because like, are they implying there's a romantic thing between Ian and Barbara or not? Is he gonna kiss her, or is he just saying shut up, stupid woman? I can't tell.
That was foreplay back then.
Those are your extremes, huh?
Yes.
I have to agree with the camera movement, especially after we watched Attack of the Cybermen, which was 80s. Like there were, like I mentioned in the episode, there was times when you couldn't see the action happening because the characters were in front of the camera in an awkward way. But yeah, this episode, I mean, that camera is moving the entire time.
And you don't even hear it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what got me. And a lot of times when you see early television camera dollies, you feel the bumps in the floor. But it was pretty darn good.
The director also really used the depth really effectively. Like we've said, like characters would split up and then come back together in different layers of people. So like, especially on that stage where you want to see like triangles of people so that you see all the faces, like no matter where they are on stage down or upstage. And yeah, I mean, he did a really good job of bringing people back together in a frame in different depths, but you could always see faces. Well, most of the time you could see faces and read the emotions from the characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we said earlier, if you can keep a take going, you don't have to stop to reset, to lose your loose ends of film to light leaks and rehearsals. Like once you're going, you want that film as much good take on that film as you can fit before you have to cut.
Tape is cheap. I don't know if you want to keep this or not, Eugene, and maybe this is a conversation for our time, but something that's in my kitchen. No, I've always been a little confused as to, you know, they couldn't rerun shows back then, but they were filming on videotape, and now we have copies of it. You know, a lot of television shows were shot live and broadcast live, but we have tape, and now we have reruns of it. Like, I don't understand. So
with BBC and Doctor Who specifically, they archived things on 16 millimeter teletape. That's what they used to ship it out to the other broadcasters that were airing it. So that's why when an episode is lost, they kind of find it because another broadcaster in a different country has a copy that was distributed by the BBC.
Like when we watch I Love Lucy, that was on film. Are you sure? I thought the whole point, because they invented the 3 camera setup, and it was.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Video.
So it wasn't filmed, but I don't know if it wasn't live. Like it didn't broadcast live. It was still taken away and edited.
It's live in front of a studio audience.
Live in front of a studio audience, yes.
Which is different than The Honeymooners or George Bird and Grace Allen. Because those were, like you said, filmed watching these screens. So it's done live locally, but then they filmed it on a screen, and that's when they were able to send it out to other areas. So when you watch some of those, they're all weirdly grainy or almost like a light double vision or blurry, because it was filmed from a screen to send out. Oh, I learned when Betty White passed.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I say, like, I Love Lucy, you watch it today, it doesn't, like, because videotape from the 80s is deteriorating when you pop in a videotape. Why doesn't videotape from the 50s?
Because that had to have been on a film.
Right. Yeah, because all this being said, this episode looked better on my television than the Colin Baker episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because this so I looked it up. A telerecording is what they used, where they take a film recording of something originally shot on another medium, usually videotapes in this case. So that's why it looks good, because it's preserved on film, even though it didn't originate on film.
Right. And then when videotapes became more prevalent, they just did it all on video and left it there.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't know any of this. I'm getting schooled right now.
We digress. We technologically digress.
Oh, I think this is all good because, like, Heather, you're learning stuff.
That's actually not a bad segue. What did you guys think of the time vortex as an effect?
Reminded me of Star Trek 4.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
like a split screen, but it was before split screen. Was it, do you know, Eugene? Was it like ink and liquid or how?
So what they did is they took the video camera and they created a feedback loop by shooting at itself and then like the monitor of what it shot.
Mhm.
So then it creates that weird, I guess, time vortex. I don't know what else to call it. Like, but yeah, that's what they did, and it was new. It was experimental. And they're like, yeah, that looks otherworldly. Let's use that.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's also funny how they use the vortex within the story, because that's how you know that the TARDIS is traveling.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because they kind of
And then
show
the-
a police box spinning at this point because it's too expensive.
I was just going to say, it's kind of one of those things that happens a lot in pilots where you throw everything in to draw people in, and then later you go, oh my God, we're not going to deal with that every single episode. Like I remember the new Battlestar Galactica, when the ship jumps through light speed, they did this whole thing where like they did the weird camera streaming thing.
Right,
And you know, you had Callie going, I hate this part. So they like literally feel it and they go through this whole big thing. And then by the time you see the next episode, it's just a flash of light, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we'd have to spend that every single time we jump.
Yeah.
That's why, like, if you ever watch The Expanse, they really play up like how difficult living in space is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So why were Susan and Ian passed out when they time traveled?
Oh, that's something that doesn't carry on, because they're disoriented when they first get in, and then when it time travels to the caveman era, they faint. That never happens again. That's just for the pilot.
They just have a weak constitution compared to Time Lords and travelers.
Yeah. I mean, we
Time or
can
something.
chalk it up to that they have what's it called? They have what's that time energy that surrounds them?
Chronoton?
Yeah, they have
Croutons?
Artron. There it is. Artron energy.
Yeah.
They start to collect Artron
I like crouton energy.
I have crouton energy.
Gallifreyan salad.
Everyone
It gives
wants
you
lunch.
crouton energy.
Salafray.
Just like the chameleon circuit. It's supposed to, like, if it lands in the caveman era, it's supposed to be like a rock. That's too expensive. So they're like, nope, we're not going to do that.
We've already built a box.
It's kind of brilliant, you know. Necessity breeds invention and creates interesting things. Because the regeneration wasn't an original concept.
They didn't know about regeneration when they wrote it.
Yeah,
That
it
just
was a
kinda
necessity that
developed.
came out. Yeah, because
In the moment when they needed it.
William Hartnell was aging and he couldn't perform as long.
He was like pushing 57.
Yeah, it's 50.
Stop it.
Geezer.
He said, "Stop it." The other thing that's related to this is that the interior of the TARDIS was also, I can't remember who it was, but they, like at BBC at the time, they had particular jobs that were, these people were just assigned shows. They weren't like, I want to work on Doctor Who. I want to work on Downton Abbey. It was, this guy, your job now is to work with Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert on this new Doctor Who show. And that's why the circles in the console room are that way, because you'll see when we do the adventure in space and time, the guy did not really want to work on Doctor Who, so he came up with that sort of last minute. But it's so iconic now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One piece of continuity that I noticed that I had forgotten about when we did the other First Doctor episodes, where they were trapped in the TARDIS and were fighting against each other.
Edge of Destruction.
That's the one. Was the clock. Because when you first enter in here, then you see the clock pristine. You know what it is. They even talk about it. It's not really in the foreground of a shot, but it's just there. And then by the time we saw that one, it was just all melty and blurry. We didn't know what it was, because I had forgotten they had already established there's a clock there. So I like that when I saw it. It's the real clock. I'm sorry?
Isn't there a candelabra too? Or
Yeah, there's some more decorative stuff that is
Right.
juxtaposed with the spaciness of the round things.
And the
Right.
chair.
Yeah. Oh, and this is the pilot episode, the first episode where Ian says, "Can you feel it? It's alive."
Yeah.
And then,
Yes.
oh
Yeah.
man, I did, but they didn't know what it was back then. But I like in
Right.
canon that we can retrofit it to be like the TARDIS is a character.
Yeah. I'm thinking exactly what you're thinking. Like, they must not have meant that because they didn't
No.
bring that up again. Then
No.
why would they have him say that? Like,
They were setting,
I found that.
this might be something they could mine episodes down the line.
When did he say it?
When they first
Remind
found
me.
the TARDIS, he put his hand on it. He's like, "Do you feel that?" And she says it's vibrating, and he says it's alive. As opposed
also,
to
Electricity.
it's
would
got
be
a
alive.
motor. Yeah, but it was just odd that he said alive as opposed to it's live, like it's humming or something. Like
maybe
it felt
that
like there
was
was supposed
British
to be
slang.
something. Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's another thing that it's along the same lines, but I find it unintentional, but I like it. When the doctor is saying to Susan, of course they're going to tell. That's just what they're going to do. If we let them go, they're going to tell somebody. May not be everybody, but they'll tell somebody, and we can't have that. And Susan says to him, human minds reject things they don't understand, meaning that they won't tell anybody, they're going to forget about it. Well, that's something that in the current show they deal with. It's like, why doesn't everybody remember Daleks? Because humans just forget things. If they don't like it, they just move on and they forget. Yes, they fall out of the universe when you reboot them, but there were plenty of Daleks before the modern era. I mean, hell, there was the Loch Ness monster in the Thames in the Fourth Doctor, but it doesn't get referred to again, which allows the show to write new episodes without getting bogged down in continuity. And I like that you can look at this. I mean, I don't think they were planning this, of course, but I look at that line as, okay, that's the establishment of that.
I wanted to keep watching this series because I was like, well, how do we get from this point to the doctor traveling with these people? Because right now he seems very against it. Like, he doesn't want them in the TARDIS. He doesn't want them knowing about him and Susan. So, like, what happens that he's then traveling with them and going on adventures?
Does it, Eugene, does it get, or Heather, you watched them all, Josh, you watched them all. Does it get resolved by the end of this serial?
I didn't get to the end, actually.
No.
No? Okay.
Well, because, I'll tell you, the serial after this is Daleks. So we get our arch enemy in the second story of the first season. I think that's amazing.
Huh.
Also, I think that's why the show survived.
Yeah.
Because people just latched onto the Daleks like crazy.
Yeah. They were talking about it a little bit on the commentary where the cavemen wasn't so popular, that story, but then the Daleks really saved the ratings for them. And I don't remember, because I haven't watched the Daleks serial in a long time, but maybe that's where they formed that TARDIS team bond, because there's more at stake in this one. In this story,
all four of them have to team together to survive.
Yeah, so I think that's where we can get that the doctor does want Barbara and Ian with them.
There's also some survival bonding in these caveman episodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure the Daleks solidify it, but you can see it starting to happen.
Okay.
I will say, as far as more so in the next pieces of the story arc, was I like, how are they going to get out of this? Like, I just kept thinking that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this pilot episode, I sort of was like that too. Like, how is he going to let him go? I kept wanting to know what's going to happen. So as stilted as some of the dialogue was, and as very dated as different things were, I was compelled to know, how are they going to get out of this, or how is he going to accomplish this? When is she going to shut up? No, or what is she going to do? So I did want to keep watching it. So it is good writing.
Mm-hmm. I think they perfected that serialized storytelling with cliffhangers and they want to bring you back next week type of thing.
Yeah, well, when that shadow came up at the very end, I didn't know anything about the story arc. So when that came up, that's why I kept watching, because I was like, well, what the heck was that?
I don't know if you noticed, but that is not a freeze frame. That is a guy standing there very still, and you can see his hands slightly moving, the shadow, while the credits were going over. So
while the credits were rolling?
Yeah, that's all live. That's crazy.
That's so cruel.
So the doctor, like we mentioned before, the doctor does visit the 76 Totters Lane I Am Foreman junkyard more than once. Yeah, we did the one with the Hand of Omega or Hand of Omega in Remembrance of the Daleks with the 7th Doctor. That's where he buried the hand, if you remember that.
Oh, I remember him doing that, but I don't remember.
Well, actually, it was near there. I mean, because he buried it in a cemetery, and then they were levitating that thing out of there.
Oh.
And then later, with the Cybermen, we mentioned that too. Attack of the Cybermen. And then it'll happen again in a upcoming episode.
And also in the Sixth Doctor one that we just saw.
Yes, this Attack of the Cybermen. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, the one that we just did, or recently did, that's where we get that bleeding of time from the console when it's being torn apart by the salvage crew. You hear all those voices, and then this is the one with Susan saying, I made up the name TARDIS from the initials. Other things that are on the DVD that I found were worth mentioning is that Verity said that this is aimed for 8 to 14-year-old boys specifically. And she mentions that she got letters after the show started to have more episodes from all types of people, not just from this boy demographic, but from boys and girls. And then she mentioned older viewers, and specifically people that were in the science field, like physicists, saying, hey, that episode you did about that time travel space thing, it's like, I'm kind of working on something like that. So I thought that was cool that she was getting fan mail from people outside of her target demographic that were really invested in the show.
Cute.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say they wrote and we're like, it's all wrong. You're really.
How dare you?
You really have to stop spreading this misinformation.
No, I'm glad it was the opposite of that. And then the cast, as we mentioned in other episodes, but I'll just go through real quick. William Hartnell plays the Doctor. Carol Ann Ford plays Susan Foreman, the granddaughter. Jacqueline Hill plays Barbara Wright. And William Russell plays Ian Chesterton. All right, that wraps up on Unearthly Child. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page. Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music and then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.